My name is Jagger. I'm the CEO of Crunchbase, and I'm going to try to do this a little different. I'm going to try to hype up the energy a little bit. And when you're talking about funding data, how the hell do you not get excited, right? I've got this next slide, trying to do it. There it is. You got this like fired up unicorn. It's running towards the bar charts I'm about to show you, and you're going to get fired up about it. But really, like, what's going on with AI funding? That's what I was asked to present. I'm going to do a little bit of that, then I'm going to talk about something else. So let's go ahead. Here's a bar chart. Funding's down. Who knew? So from peak, funding's down a little bit. It's pretty flat, 24, 25. It's looking maybe a slight increase. If you look at US, it's about the same. If you look back in time, yes, this is kind of 2018, 2019 levels. We're not at anywhere close to 2021. This is all funding across all sort of industries. If you go and look at the global venture dollar volume by quarter, and you go, look, same. It's pretty much flat over all the way back to middle of 2022 when everything sort of hit the fan, if you will. But again, you could optimistically say, well, it's the best quarter since then, and that maybe it is a little bit better. But again, we're nowhere where we used to be. Cool. So let's talk about AI for a second. That's what I was asked to talk about. It's way up. Who knew? There's a lot of funding going into AI, lots of investment happening here, almost double from 2023 was what we saw in 2024. 2025 is going to continue that trend. That is still exciting. There's a lot of cool stuff going on with the global funding. It's about a third of the total global funding is into AI. On the US side, you also see a big spike. It's also about double. And when you look at that sort of compared to all funding in the US, it's about half, so a little closer to half. So there certainly is an over-index on funding happening on the AI side in the US. Amazing. So what did you learn from all that? I don't know. You learn how much money was raised, and we looked at historical data, and that was fun. You might have learned that AI got more funding, which hopefully you gathered from being in this room, and then some other stuff happened in the past. This is a problem for my industry, right? I just don't think bar charts are interesting. I'm not a bar chart. I don't even like bar charts. I hate them. So how do we make this more interesting? How do we make Crunchbase do something that is not going to become completely irrelevant when an LLM just scoops up all of our data and then we're gone, right? Like that's the end of Crunchbase. So this is sort of a panic moment because we realized that historical data was completely dead. So if you think about what we do, you're like, Jagger, you're the Crunchbase CEO. You deal in historical data. You're screwed right now. The reality is we would be screwed if we didn't change, if we didn't do something different than what we were doing before. And as a data company, all we can be thinking about is, of course, how does AI do this? But also, what do we have that no one else has? What data can't you scrape? What data don't you have access to that I can go do something with? And then what can I do that will make you get excited about Crunchbase again? Like that's what we're interested in. So we thought a fair bit, and what we realized is we could actually go and use the 17 years of data that we have in Crunchbase, take the 80 million people that use Crunchbase, and take that and try to figure out what's going to happen next at companies. That's more interesting than what has happened at companies. You're looking at this data to ask questions, right? When you go and say, Jagger, what was the last funding round that happened at a company? Usually there's another question there. The other question is, are they raising again soon? Are they going to get acquired? Do they have money so that they can buy my stuff? Like those are the questions you're trying to ask with that one data point. When was the last time they raised funding? That's all you're trying to figure out 19,000 times out of 19,001 times. So we realized that we can do a better job here because we have more data than what you can see on the profile. In fact, more data than anyone has on these companies in the world. So how do we do that? Well, you know it's for the hindsight, right? We collect a lot of data, we gather it all up, and we start going and sorting in and filtering it. And now we have this hindsight data. We can tell you what happened on the company. That's what, when you go to Crunchbase, that's what you've seen, right? Is this historical view of a company. But what we realize is we can go and start identifying some patterns, and these are patterns that use thousands of vectors across these companies, right? Like this isn't like one or two data points. This is looking at so much stuff that you don't even know that we capture. How many of you think that we're a wiki? Raise your hand. Oh, none of you. Don't tease me like that. Because when I've done this before, everyone says, oh, you're user-generated data. But I don't think you're raising your hand because you're not paying attention or you're lying to me. But the reality is a lot of people think that's true. And it is true for about 5% of our data. The other 95% of our data comes from all sorts of different sources. We have got tons of partnerships pulling in data, thousands and thousands of VC firms giving us data. We go crawl, we do a lot of sorting, there's a lot of shit that we do there. That all gets that data in for us to go and do the pattern analysis to go and figure out what's going to happen next at a company. It's really hard to convince people that these predictions are any good because you're so used to predictions being bad. And that's usually because people are just guessing. They go and say, oh, I don't know, like it's just gambling. Like we're in Vegas, right? It's 100% gambling is what most predictions are. But in our case, we're able to do some crazy stuff that allows it to be not actually gambling. What we do is we take anonymized usage data. So think about like a company profile for a second. Let's imagine an entrepreneur goes and updates it. Well, why would they update it, right? Why would they go and update that profile? It's probably because they want to either have people find their company to go or have job seekers find their company, or they're looking to go and raise money, or they're trying to sell their company. Like those are like the primary reasons. So you have a little bit of a signal right away, but not enough to like hang our hat on. Now imagine a huge amount of investor flow comes into that profile right after that happened. Well, that's a weird coincidence, right? Like compared to how it used to be, that profile now has a lot of investor interest. That could be kind of a good signal that there's something going on with this company. Those are the sorts of hints that we start to get when we start to look at usage data. Again, there's thousands of those. I'm not going to walk you through all of them. But it does lead us to this crazy thing. And if you're a data nerd like I am, 95% precision and 99% recall is banana town. Good. It means that when we make a prediction, right, that like it's right most of the time. That's crazy. And like we didn't even think it was going to be this good. Like when we did it, we were like, maybe it's going to be like 70%. No, it's really, really high. And that's just the funding prediction. Acquisition prediction is super high. So we just launched this. We're putting it on the market. And what does LS do? We've had 90,000 predictions made in the last 30 days. So we're just cranking through our data set, trying to figure out what's going to happen next with companies. We think that's more important than any funding data that's on our profile page, and when we're talking to customers, it seems to be true. Let's talk about some stuff. If you went over that part of the, I think I'm right, yeah, over there somewhere, there's Grammarly that just bought Coda, right? Coda is now part of Grammarly. We predicted that 60 days ago, or 60 days in advance of it actually happening. Like, how could we have known that? Because we're looking at all this data and trying to figure it out, looking at these patterns. Hippocratic, we said, 97% chance that they're going to raise funding 4 months before they raise funding. So like I hear you, it's creepy, but it's also exciting because this is how AI is going to change data companies. This is how we're going and using the data that only we have to go and figure out what's going to happen next and ultimately have differentiated data that none of our competitors can have. It's not going to be this like shakedown on who's got the best funding data. None of that stuff matters anymore, in my opinion. The only thing that matters is this sort of stuff. Can we go and help you understand what's going to happen next at companies? So let's go and make some predictions right now. I wish I had like 30 of these just to like blow your heads, but we're gonna do a little bit of it. So first, right here today, there's 150-ish companies. We know that 45 of them are going to get acquired. That's very likely. That's a very high probability. We give you like probability scores. 45 of them we think are going to go and get acquired relatively soon. If you are curious which ones, you can just go to Crunchbase and you can look it up and figure it out. So there's a lot of like, that's interesting, right? If you're a corp dev person here and you're thinking about which companies should I acquire from here, you can just go to Crunchbase and say, show me the companies that are likely to get acquired soon. You're going to get that list. So that's very, very valuable for you. Or if you're a salesperson, if it was funding, because I don't think I have a slide on this, but 22 out of the 150 are going to fundraise in the next 12 months. That's because, by the way, half of the companies here have fundraised in the last 12 months. So it's a smaller number, but that's going to get, you could go and start talking to them and say, hey, sounds like you're doing pretty good. Maybe you'd like to consider my software. I think you're growing. And when they raise funding, they can actually afford you. So Honeycomb, you'll probably find somewhere around here. And so I've only picked companies that are actually here. So hopefully they're not here like in the audience and like yelling at me for this. But they have an 84% chance of fundraising in the next 6 months. Honeycomb is a developer tool to help you sort of monitor and work with your development team. I don't want to pitch them for you, but 84% chance the next 6 months. And so this little screenshot is like what you would see on the company on the Crunchbase company profile. So you can kind of get a sense of how we communicate to you what we think is going to happen and where. Another company, Superhuman, we think it's very likely that they're going to get acquired. Rahul is there somewhere. I was supposed to have drinks with them. He may not want to have drinks with me anymore. But we think high probability that they're going to get acquired. Also, my team didn't know this. I'm an investor in Superhuman, so I'm going to disclose that to all of you right now. So sorry. They didn't know that when they put the slide together. But again, so I like them to get acquired, honestly. But this is the sort of stuff that we do. And you'll notice that we go and say, look, there's runway speculation. In the API, there's a lot more detail. We go and say what the actual percentage is. We go and say all the drivers behind all this. In the UI, we just give you kind of like a little taste of it so you can have a sense of the sort of stuff that we've got going on. And then finally, I always get this question, and it was actually one of the most awkward moments of building this thing, is Crunchbase. So Crunchbase is, of course, in Crunchbase. It's very meta. And our prediction engine said that we're probably going to get acquired, greater 50% chance. Probably not wrong. It also said we're probably not going to go IPO. Also probably not wrong. There's a number of these different predictions. I just talked about a few of them. We've got layoffs. We've got growth predictions. We've got closure predictions. There's a lot of different things that we try to go and figure out. They have different accuracy scores, but acquisition and fundraise both are in the 95-96% range. That is my last slide. Thank you very much. Hope you're enjoying HumanX, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.